There's a weight some of you are carrying right now that was never part of your assignment, that God never assigned to you. Not your business, not your team, not your clients, but this weight. No one handed you all of it. You pick some of it up piece by piece, slowly, strategically, responsibly, because you care, because you're capable, because you know what it happens if it gets dropped. But somewhere along the way, responsibility turned into ownership, and ownership turned into control. And now everything still runs through you. Not because it has to, but because you haven't released it. Let's dig into that. Because this isn't just operational. This is spiritual. You're holding things that were never assigned to you. Let me define what I mean by that. When I say something isn't assigned to you, I don't mean it's not important. I mean, it's not yours to carry, to own, or to be the point of execution for. There's a difference between being aware of something and being responsible for it. And right now, a lot of you have collapsed those two things. You see a gap. You see a gap, and instead of making sure it's owned, you step in and fill it. You see a decision that needs to be made, and instead of clarifying who holds that authority, you make it. You see something slipping, and instead of correcting the structure, you compensate for it. That's what I mean. It's not that these things don't matter. It's that they were never meant to live with you. Because when something is actually assigned to you, it aligns with your role, your level of leadership, and your function inside the business, not just your capability. And this is where high capacity leaders get it twisted. Just because you can do something doesn't mean it's yours to hold. In fact, the more capable you are, the more disciplined you have to be about what you don't pick up. Because every time you take on something that isn't assigned to you, you're not just helping, you're rewriting the structure. You're teaching the business that it belongs to you. And over time, everything starts routing back to you, even when it shouldn't. That's how leaders become the bottleneck without ever intending to. And if you're honest, some of what you're carrying right now isn't yours because of the business. It's yours because you didn't trust someone else to hold it. And no amount of strategy will fix that. If you're still operating from the belief that it's your job to carry it all, that's not leadership. That's misalignment. And misalignment always costs you something. Your energy, your clarity, your peace, your capacity to actually lead. Because when you're overholding, you can't hear clearly. You can't hear your team, your business. You can't even hear God. Because all you can hear is the noise of everything depending on you. And some of you have gotten so used to that noise that you think it's normal. You think pressure equals purpose, but it doesn't. Sometimes pressure is just proof you've stepped outside of your assignment. And I know that hits, and it probably stings. Because the version of you that built this is the same version of you that learned how to step in, to step up, and step over anything that wasn't working. That's what got you here. but it won't take you where you're trying to go next, because what built it is now the very thing bottlenecking it. And here's where most leaders won't go. There's a part of you that doesn't actually want to let go. Not fully. Because as long as everything still runs through you, you feel in control. You feel necessary. You feel needed. You feel safe. But that's not leadership. That is actually control dressed up as responsibility. And control, well, control will keep your business small enough for you to manage, but never structured enough for it to grow beyond you. Because if your business still requires your constant involvement to function, you don't have a business. You have a system that survives because you never step away. And that's not freedom. That's dependency. And it's not just the business that's depending on you. You're depending on it too. To validate your role, to confirm your importance, to reinforce that what you're carrying matters. But leadership, real leadership, was never supposed to look like this. Leadership was never meant to cost you your peace. And it was never meant to replace your faith with control. Because you can't operate in faith and control everything at the same time. At some point, you have to choose. Am I going to trust what's been built? Or am I going to keep gripping it so tightly that nothing else can actually grow? That's the tension. Actually, that's the edge. Because releasing control doesn't mean things fall apart. It reveals where things were never fully built. And most leaders avoid that moment. Because it's easier to keep compensating than it is to actually correct the structure. But if you don't, you will keep carrying things that were never yours to begin with. And not because you have to, but because you've trained everything. You have trained everything around you to rely on it. Now, this is where leadership shifts. Not in doing more, not in becoming better, but in becoming more aligned, in recognizing what is actually yours to hold, and having the discipline and the faith to release the rest. Because the goal isn't to be the strongest one in the room. The goal is to build something that no longer requires your strength to survive. Well, that's leadership. That's structure. That is faith, fire, and frequency in motion.
Leadership isn't what you perform. It's what you embody. If this conversation resonated, share it with someone ready to lead differently. And remember, when your faith ignites your fire amplifies your frequency. Until next time.